Everybody, welcome to this episode of inDIE Spotlight. I'm Brian.
I'm Leah Stalker.
And Clint's on assignment. He's super busy. He's got Motor City Nightmares last month, Flashback this month, Ohio Terror Con, The Nugget.
He's a busy boy. He's a busy guy.
So Clint's on assignment.
Yep.
So he's not here this episode.
You get me and Brian.
We'll see how this goes. He's probably a chain shopping for his new wallet, maybe.
Maybe that. I wish he would have told me. Then it would have just been you by yourself talking about the movies. So that maybe that's why he kept it to himself.
You would have went chain shopping too?
Absolutely. You can't have enough chains for your wallet.
So on this episode, we're going back to a movie. I was lucky enough to see this movie last year at the 2023 Drive-In Jamboree in Las Vegas with Joe Bob and Darcy and John and Yuki, and I think Felissa Rose was there, and they filmed a movie there for Charles Band, Full Moon. They filmed a movie at the Jamboree. Roger Corman was there.
Wow.
Bruce Dern was there. They filmed an episode of The Last Drive-In there. But on Friday night, they showed 3 films. 3 independent films, and then 10 maybe shorts. I was tired. I didn't stay for all of the shorts.
That's a lot of movies all in one night, I will say.
But I believe this was the second movie to show. There was a Cannibal Comedian, was the first movie, and then Publish or Perish from 2023, and then Mutilator 2. I don't know if you know Mutilator 1.
I don't. I'm just going to be really honest.
You've probably seen the poster or like the artwork from Mutilator 1. It's like a big fish hook with a guy holding it, and there's people hanging in the background, like on the wall. So you may have seen that.
It sounds kind of familiar, I will say. Just being in horror so much and having so much coming across my feed, sometimes my brain doesn't exactly process maybe the name of something, but the imagery always sticks with me, and that does sound familiar.
And it's funny because in this movie, they're on fall break. So not spring break, they're on fall break. There's a song in the movie Fall Break.
Stop. Okay. Now I have to look up the song Fall Break.
When the leaves of summer turn red and gold and the football games bring a hint of the cold, time to get away. We'll pack the car with escape in mind, forgetting about classes, leaving books behind, time to get away. Empty cottage sit on the shore, tourists all left about a month before, and we're gonna have a good time. Gonna have a good time. Yeah, we're gonna have a good time.
We're going on now.
A fall break, walking hand in hand in the moonlight.
Publisher Perish is an independent film. Cannibal Comedian, again, an independent film. Publisher Perish is actually free on a couple sites, but I watched it on Tubi.
I also watched it on Tubi. Love Tubi.
An hour and 40 minutes long. Didn't find a budget or anything. It's an independent. Looks like it premiered February 22nd, 2023, and it's been on the film festival circuit and shown a lot of places. But now we're lucky enough that it's on Tubi, and we needed a movie. I felt like it was time for a movie.
I was actually really excited. So I've enjoyed the interviews and talking about music and the comic books. We love being able to talk about all different kinds of independent, but I was really actually excited this weekend to go back to the standard movie format of watch a movie, take notes on a movie, talk about a movie. I don't know. It just feels very classic inDIE Spotlight. So I was excited when you recommended a movie, and I'm even more excited that you recommended this movie, just to give a hint at my opinion at it, on it.
Not something I feel like Clint or I would normally recommend.
No, I was actually pretty surprised with it when I was watching it, but this was, if we're ready to get right into it, I'll get right into it. I loved this movie so much. It was such a great movie. Now, the last question I have in my notes, but I'm going to bring it up to the very top. Is this considered a horror movie, or what's the genre of this exactly? Do you know?
Dark comedy, maybe?
Okay, that makes more sense to me with it being dark comedy. It did have, obviously, some horror threads woven throughout it, but I was cracking up laughing. I was on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what was going to happen. But in my notes, the best way I could sum it up was that this was the dark comedy version of Mr. Bean. if something could go wrong, it was going wrong. I had anxiety the whole time, but in the best, funniest way.
So it starts out, there's a teacher, or professor, he's taken a new job, his family's moved, and he's got to work for 8 years before he can get tenure. So it starts, and then it jumps forward 7 years, and it's the year that he would apply for tenure. The Dean Crowley, is an asshole.
Yes.
Then again, I think his name's Jim.
The professor?
Professor Bowden.
Bowden. I just kept calling him Professor or Mr. Bowden.
He's a prick. Like, he's an asshole too. Like,
he is. They were so likable, even being assholes. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's hard to feel bad for anything that happens to him. You kind of feel bad for the first person that's murdered, but the second person that he murders, you're kind of like, well, you don't feel happy about it, but you're not mad about that one. I'm mad about the first guy.
The first guy, he was minding his own business. But also, how are we kind of gonna sprinkle in those little spoilers of what's happened? So he gets hit by a car. Dr. Bowden, or Professor Bowden, is super stressed. He's trying to get his
dissertation.
Oh, I thought it was his dossier. His dossier turned in by a specific time. So he goes to back up in a parking lot, and it's a parking structure that it looks like his is the only car. It's an empty parking structure, and poor Derek manages to get ran over. And then the best part was that Professor Bowden goes, "What the fuck was that?" And he pulls forward and thump thump. What the fuck was that? I was cracking up, and that instantly set the pace of how this was going to be. Now that you said dark comedy, I'm obsessed. That's exactly what it was, because it was so funny, so dark, so amazing.
So he puts Derek in the car and is like, I got to turn this paperwork in. Goes to turn it in, and then is going to take Derek to the hospital. But I mean, he ran him over. He would have lived the first time, but then he ran him over, like killed the guy.
And then he waited. He had to go turn in the dossier for his tenure. And so he also just left him bleeding.
Well, one of his students asked for an extension. And he's like, no, it's due today. And then come to find out, he'd got an extension on his dossier. So you're like, this prick.
I did absolutely clock that, because I know that there are teachers that have where they're so strict, but then for them, they're like, oh, just bend the rules a little bit. Him and the dean and Mia, who asked for the extension, there were some characters in here where they were so unlikable, but I will say that I loved every single actor and actress in this movie. They were so likable. I loved every time someone would pop up on the screen that was outside of I loved Professor Bowden, don't get me wrong, but everyone else, I just loved seeing how they interacted. Even Alex, the pornographer. His daughter was wonderful. I thought her sass and her attitude were great, but even the characters that were supposed to be very unlikable, you still liked them. You were still kind of rooting for him. Professor Bowden, he kept making all the wrong decisions, but you were still kind of hoping for him.
Well, and he goes to bury Derek, and he goes to the store, and he runs into Alex, his daughter's boyfriend. I mean, he's just a young kid. He's kind of takes advantage of the daughter by putting her in a movie, and she's topless.
He's trying to be artsy. I mean, we've all used that line. Do you want to be in my film?
He buys a shovel, and he's like, can I get a bag? And the guy behind the counter's like, it's a shovel. What the fuck? After he does this is a really nice shovel. It's pretty indestructible. You're not going to break it. Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, can I get a bag? It's a shovel. I'm going to put it in a bag. Just throughout the whole movie, there's little lines like that
yes,
are sprinkled in. The wife's great. The daughter's great. I mean, the wife is a photographer for animals.
For pets. At first, when I'm watching the movie, I think it's going to have this very serious tone to it. And so he's kind of checking in with her for the day. And he's like, what do you have going on? She says, I have a new client. His name is Vincent. He's a very lovely boy. I thought she was going to be a therapist or a psychiatrist or something. I thought it was going to be very serious. No, cut to this woman taking pictures of a dog with little purple pom-poms on his head. I wasn't expecting it at all, but they managed to throw just so many good little jokes and, like you said, little lines that just catch you off guard.
And they play it straight to the vest the whole movie.
Yes.
It's not like they're ever trying to be funny or trying to push it down your throat. It's just what they say and the lines and yeah, at one point I think he says to his daughter something about her breasts and she's like, they are pretty nice, like, and he's like, oh my fucking God. Like any parent, you're like, oh Lord.
She was fun. She was one of my favorite characters, I will say. But even why I was also getting confused about the genre of the movie. So Derek has passed. The second person that, well, we can get into that shortly. They come back. They come back as like ghosts or apparitions that only the professor can see, and they're bickering. The ghosts of these dead students are bickering with Professor Bowden. So once again, it really keeps you on your toes, but they're playing it very straight. It's not so much for comedy. It's just to get some of the dialogue out, but also they're just being students. They're just being young college students and a little bit obnoxious while being dead.
Yeah, because once he's taking Derek to bury him or after he's buried him, he's in the car and he's like,
Yeah.
why did this happen to me? I'm a good person. And Derek's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You just killed me. You're a fucking prick.
Professor Bowden does have a little bit of this God complex where he thinks that he can do no wrong. He thinks he deserves everything. Going all the way back to the beginning, just real quick, I obviously have heard of tenure before. You hear of tenured professors, but I never really knew what exactly it means. So I love the fact that they opened the movie putting the definition of tenure on it, but also in a very short amount of time, they were able to very easily get across just how important tenure was to him. It was very well written where you're just like, oh, tenure is amazing. I want tenure. I'm not even a professor. Fabulous storytelling in very succinct ways throughout the entire movie, starting right from the beginning.
And he's also an author. Wrote like a smutty book, maybe, or...
We love that. We love a smutty book.
So the dean doesn't like him for that. I feel like the dean just does not like him. And you find out later in the movie, the dean probably doesn't like most of the teachers, if any of the teachers.
Agreed.
Or professors. The dean's having an affair with his secretary or...
administrative assistant, Emily.
She's
obnoxious.
Yeah, she's obnoxious.
She's obnoxious, but she does it very well. I will say, as much as I said, like, I do enjoy all the characters. The actress did a really good job. The character is supposed to be kind of unlikable, and she does that well. And it's not to the point where you get upset every time you see her on the screen. You just know Emily's gonna be a bitch.
She's fucking with the stand-up thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, what a Lord help us. Like I said, I saw this at a drive-in last year. Dark, eating popcorn. Really enjoyed it. Kind of out of the wheelhouse again of the other stuff that I would normally watch. But it came back up because Tiffany, my girlfriend's a teacher. So tenure is a kind of a fun thing for them. It's not the same as being a professor that's tenured, but it's kind of like when you work at a job and they're like, oh, you're invested in your 401k. Oh, you have PTO now. Oh, they give you all these benefits that...
Mm-hmm.
You kind of want to stick around for. But with tenure, you can pretty much, like the dean says, do anything and still have a fucking job.
It's wild to me that exists. Like I said, they explain the tenure, but it's very weird to be like, you're tenured now. You can just go off the rails, and except for very rare occasions, you can't be fired. That's insane to me.
One of the craziest tenured stories that I know of is where I live. There's a teacher who's been arrested at least twice, possibly 3 times, for theft. One time over $10,000 from a business, and then this last time from Target for over $300 twice, and still works for the school district.
Jeez.
And it's like, what the...
So this movie really is imitating life, because the funny thing is that when I started watching this movie earlier today, because I like having it fresh in my mind, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he actually is a tenured professor. And I said, I'm watching this movie. It's about a professor who wants to be tenured, and he accidentally kills I meant to type student. I typed stupid. So I said, he accidentally killed a stupid, and he goes, stupid ? And I said, student, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. He goes, same thing. So apparently tenured professors are just kind of dicks. They're invincible. They can do no wrong.
I mean, how many times do you hear about a professor sleeping with a student? Not that that happens. You hear about the ones that happen.
You do hear about it.
So, and they're like, oh, I still got a job. I mean, okay, whatever. And the one student that ends up getting killed, that's what she's trying to blackmail him.
Yes. So going back to the story is that we're talking about Mia, who she had asked for an extension. And when she was denied her extension, which she only wanted 1 day, it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. So Mia doesn't get her extension. So what does she do? She accuses Professor Bowden of sexual something like...
I think they were having an affair.
Tomfoolery, sexual tomfoolery, and an affair. So she blows it out of the water. So this is what I was talking about, where it was that Mr. Bean situation where he's late getting his dossier in. He accidentally runs over and kills a student. The shovel breaks. He's trying to figure out getting new tires on his car. Mia is bugging him. Mia accuses him of an affair. And then even his wife, when they were talking, had drawn that little picture, and it was a naughty picture. It said student's pet, and he included it with his tenure dossier. I knew that picture was going to bite him in the butt. I just absolutely knew it was going to come. It was a dirty picture. It was kind of gross, but I knew it was going to bite him in the butt.
And how much fun is the tire guy at the junkyard?
The tire guy's hilarious. He's such a jerk. Once again, and just every character in this story is a total jerk, but it's done in such a fun way you can't be mad about it. Because we all know characters where you're like, this character's a jerk. I can't stand them. All of these characters are so fun. They're hilarious. And I just think that also comes from the actors and actresses. I'm obsessed with every single person that was in this film because it was just done in such a good way where even given these terrible situations and people doing terrible things, you're laughing and you're really enjoying it and you're kind of rooting for them a little bit. Just a little, just a tiny bit.
The funniest one to me is when he's buried Derek and he's sitting in his car, or maybe he hasn't buried him yet, but he's behind that building and the security guard walks up. And he's like, hey, you got to move your car. He's like, okay. He's like, no, you can't park here. You got to move your car. And he's like, yeah, but I just turned in my tenure dossier. And he's like, I don't know what that means. You got to move.
Because I think for the average person, we don't think about tenure.
You'd be like, I don't care. You still got to move your car. But the lengths he goes to cover all this up, sending his boss a naked picture of his daughter via email.
Yes.
He knows no bounds.
Did you say he sent it to his boss? He broke in and he went onto the dean's computer and he sent the dirty picture from the dean's email to his daughter, trying to make it seem like the dean was obsessed with him. And then he was planting evidence. He changed his tires like multiple times. Yeah. From a complete and total utter accident of, in my opinion, yes, he was on a schedule. He's trying to get the tenure dossier to them. If he said, the student came out of nowhere, I accidentally hit him with my car and I had to take him to the hospital, they probably would have been like, we'll give you an extension. We'll get the folders. Instead, he goes about everything in the worst possible way. And he just makes so much trouble for himself. And then it's just escalating. And then he's dragging others. So now his daughter is dragged into it. The dean is dragged into it.
Alex is dragged into it.
Alex is hardcore dragged into it in the worst way possible because he was planting evidence on Alex. Spoiler alert. The whole episode's a spoiler alert if you're this far.
The tagline for the movie is, the path to tenure can be murder. If you know that, you know what's going to happen. Yeah, but I don't want to give too much away about the ending. Yeah, like how it all wraps up and like what happens at the end. I mean, everybody seems happy at the end.
Yes, the ending 100% shocked me. I will say that my jaw was on the floor. There were times where throughout this movie, I can't cite every single one of them. I would just scream and I would cuss and I would have to pause it and I would have to take a walk around my house because it it just kept unfolding in the most interesting ways. But the ending had my jaw on the floor. I do want to keep that one. You just got to go watch it. You have to see it. I think absolutely everyone would like it. It wasn't terribly gory or anything like that. Anyone could watch this movie, in my opinion. It had, when you saw when you saw Derek come back as a ghost, he had a little bit of dribbled blood on him and stuff. He had a tire mark, a very comical tire mark across his chest. It was done in a very funny way. I do think that absolutely anyone can watch this movie. It was a dark comedy, as Brian said. It's not a horror. I don't think anyone's going to be covering their eyes. It's funny murder.
And it's an hour and 40 minutes long. I don't feel like it felt an hour and 40 minutes long. It moves along pretty well.
I'm going to be really honest with you. So as I watch the movie, I have another screen up and I take my notes. So I'll sit there and I pause, and I forgot sometimes to take notes because I just got so interested in watching the movie. I was having such a good time. I forgot I was watching it for the podcast. I thought I was just watching it for fun, which I always have fun. I did have this mindset of where I just thought it was so hilarious. I'm just happily watching it. And I was like, shit, I'm supposed to be taking notes and having talking points and this and that. So it was a very enjoyable movie. And like you said, for an hour and 40 minutes, it absolutely flew by. We have watched some where they drag.
There's no one in the movie I feel like you would know. It's Timothy McCracken is Professor Bowden. Katie Michaels is Emily. Anna McKenzie is Lisa, that's his wife. Caleb Liban is Derek. So that would be the director's son, maybe, because it's directed by David Liban. His son's Caleb. And the trivia for that is he's actually a tenured professor. The director is.
The director? So...
Yeah, I think he wrote this kind of like after going through the whole process, become tenured. He's like, I need to write a movie about this because it's fucking awful.
Well, and that was the thing, is that when they were opening it and the dean was talking about it, he said, like you said, the 8 years, and he's like, you then have to document everything you do in the next 8 years, and then the team will decide if you're worthy or not. Absolutely not. I would not. I would not for any job want to have to document what I do for 8 years and then defend my time at the company and then have 3 people tell me if I'm worthy or not of the time that I spent. If they say no, ow.
Well, that's what I was like. If they say no, do you wait another 8 years and try it again? Or like, do they let you go? You're good enough to still work here, but you don't have tenure.
Remember, though, they said that there was a professor the year before. He got denied and then he became a barista. Maybe there's no point in continuing or anything like that. I'm still very curious if he was able to make the little animals in the phone like the wife had asked. And I will say, for your fun fact, saying that Alex was played by the director's son, that was a very enjoyable character. I'm going to repeat myself, but he was someone, because he was a little porny college kid, he was someone that you could have easily been disgusted with, but he was just so fun about it, and his personality was so good. So it was not a Nepo thing of him being in the movie, because sometimes I do worry about that when you hear that same last name. You're like, oh, did they just put their... No, he earned that role. He owned that role. He was very good at as Alex.
Well, Alex was actually Nick James. It was Caleb was Derek. So the first kid that got killed.
That was the son?
Yes, that was the son.
Oh, cut all that out. That was a whole rant.
No, that's all right.
I went off about the wrong thing. I did like Alex. That just shows how passionately I felt about Alex. But also Derek was wonderful. So everyone that was in this movie belonged in this movie.
The only maybe actor you would know would be James Shanklin, who played the dean. He just has that face where he looks familiar.
I thought he looks like the guy who plays, and I know he's not, but he looks like the guy who plays the owner of the Bugle in Spider-Man. But I know he's not that, but I feel like he had that similar, but he does have a face where he looked familiar the whole time. Has he been in something?
I know he's in Moneyball, which is a Brad Pitt movie about baseball.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
He was in Shameless as in one episode of Shameless.
Oh, does it say who he was in Shameless?
Rupert Jr., he was only in one episode.
Okay.
He's been in NCIS, he's been in Hell on Wheels, Criminal Minds.
So he's just been in everything.
I mean, he was in Beverly Hills Cop, which was a TV movie. Weeds, he was in an episode of Grey's Anatomy. I mean, Cold Case, it just keeps going on and on and on.
Wow.
Desperate Housewives.
He does have that where you just pick him. He's one of those background characters or one of those character actors where you're just, because like I said, he was the only person where I was like, gosh, do I know him from something? That's it. He's from everything. That's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, he was on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, Guiding Light. Yeah, he's just one of those actors that you're like, I know that guy. I know that person. He's from something. But yeah, has a very familiar face too and very familiar voice and just great.
He was very enjoyable the whole time. He was amazing. Like I said, I said it before, but I'll say it again. I absolutely loved every single actor and actress that was in this movie. There were no weak points whatsoever. Everyone that was on the screen, even down to the clerk that was at the hardware store, everyone carried their own. Everyone held it down. It was so good. So it was well written, well directed, great pace, great actors and actresses, great story, great ending. This is absolutely one of my favorite movies that we've watched on Indie Spotlight. I'm gonna say it.
We've only watched like 3 movies so far. Right? I mean, Darius.
Okay. Yes. Oh yeah, that's who it's going. Do I like Darius or this movie?
Was it Wyland? I didn't dislike that one. Clint, I think, didn't like it.
Oh, Clint didn't.
Maybe that's why he didn't show up. He's like, another movie? Not gonna do it.
We're banned from selecting movies for Clint, I guess. I'm kind of banned. I offered up a movie for the next time that I'm on the main feature episode, and he was like, maybe we'll go a different direction. I'm banned after Dolls, so...
What was the movie that you offered? I don't remember.
The Boy.
Oh, The Boy, yeah. Do you just like dolls? Inanimate objects?
There's a reason for The Boy, but you'll have to watch it. You've never seen The Boy?
No, but I kind of know, I think, what happens. But yeah, I've never watched it.
Don't think about it too hard, but there's the ending is, because the moment that the ending came up, you'd be like, this is why Leah likes this movie. If you know, you know.
Another great line from the movie was at the end, without spoiling anything. The dean says something about, I hope when I die, I get a fucking bench.
Oh, yeah. I'm staying away from it just because I don't want to accidentally spoil it. I did have notes of what happened at the end, but like I said, I'm avoiding them because I do want people to see it naturally without hearing anything from us. Line after line was funny, but the final scene wrapped up the movie perfectly. I couldn't have had it any other way.
So I think with Indie Spotlight, we just say, you should watch this, and this is the reasons why. Or you shouldn't watch this, and this is the reasons why. And like you said, I don't think anybody's going to go put this movie on and find a reason not to like it unless you just don't like dark comedies or you don't get some of the humor. There's a little bit of nudity. There's not a lot of gore. Well written. It's well acted. And I enjoyed it enough that it stuck with me from October of last year. So, I mean, 10 months later, I still was like, oh, we should check that movie out. And I looked it up and I found it and we watched it.
I think this is one I would definitely recommend to other people. There are movies, well, now that you've pointed out that we've only watched 2 other movies, I don't go throughout my day-to-day life telling people that they should watch Darius. I'm going to be really honest. I do talk about it in in a haunted sort of way, but this is a movie 100%. Like I am going to even recommend this movie to like for my dad to watch or something. Like I think there's nothing terrible enough where I would be embarrassed to tell my dad like, hey, I watched this movie, you should watch it. No, he likes dark comedy. I think that he would enjoy this movie, especially since you can get it for free on Tubi. And my favorite part of Tubi is, and always will be, I've never had to sign up for an account on there. I don't have an account. You literally can just type in the movie. You can find it easily. You can watch it. It had very minimal commercials too. Nothing that stood out so much where I was annoyed. It has less commercials than YouTube or Twitch, in my opinion, by a long shot. Easy way to watch it, absolutely free for anyone, and you don't even have to make an account. And there's nothing holding you back from watching this movie.
You know what else you don't have to have an account for?
Oh, what?
To check out the shows on our podcast network, the PFPN. So we should hear from them.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
So now that we've heard from our podcast network, go watch Fucking Publish or Perish.
Yes, do it. You'll love it.
And then go check out Pure Macabre, Mishmash,
Absolutely. On Instagram and TikTok.
for all your Michigan spooky happenings. It's all over. It's growing like a virus. Not like a bad virus, like what's a good virus?
Oh my God. I don't know. Please don't equate Pure Macabre to a virus.
It's growing like mold that turns into penicillin that will cure what ails you. How's that? That
Are you
better?
complimenting me or are you knocking me down? This sounds real cold.
Mold penicillin saved like millions of lives throughout the history of
I
mankind.
need Clint to come back so he can
Yeah.
defend. Actually, no, he won't defend me. He'll jump on it and he'll call me a virus too.
He'd have some. Look at that thing in the background. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
I did hang up some new things in the background and I was like, oh, I hope the guys like it when they get nosy and look at all my shit.
I didn't even notice. Clint's the one that looks at all that stuff.
It's a bag from the Oddities and Curiosities Festival that I went to. Yay. That was fun. If that comes by, you got to go check it out. It was fabulous. Plug.
On the next episode of Indie Spotlight, we tour Leah's bedroom.
No!
What mysteries will be uncovered?
Nothing you want to know about. Absolutely not. That's the horror.
Dark comedy. We'd all laugh, maybe.
You know what? All right, we've pushed Mishmash. We've pushed Pure Macabre. What are you doing? You're on that. What are you doing? What do you got going on?
You got the main episodes of the I Like It Spooky Horror podcast. You got appendages, which, I don't know, there's some stuff going on in streaming that's kind of maybe going to change appendages. So, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
Sometimes change is fun. Sometimes change could be interesting.
What else? What else do we got? Appendages, main episodes, Indie Spotlight. Oh, and this new...
I've heard inklings of a new show.
Yeah, there's a new show that if you haven't caught it, we're on maybe our second episode now. Yeah, it premiered July 28th. It's called The Wrong Podcast Died. So it's myself and my co-host Rod, and we're both horror movie fans. But we go way off the beaten path for us. Charlotte's Web is coming up as an episode.
Oh, okay.
Clueless is coming up as an episode.
Clueless formed my whole personality as a child. You were giving me a sneak peek and talking about some of the stuff that you guys have discussed, and I'm a pop culture girly. I really do like that, not just when it comes to horror stuff, but just pop culture in general. And so I'm here for it. I like it.
So it's a little different though than spooky. It's still part of the spooky verse, what I call it. But we take a film, we take a TV show, we take a record, we take an event. We haven't done a record in an event yet, but we will eventually. Probably never do books. I don't like to read, but maybe like a short book, maybe like a little golden book.
Oh my God. Hop on pop.
And we work off the date that premiered or was released. And we talk about what was popular in music and movies and what was going on in sports. And were there any famous people born that day? What was going on in pop culture events?
So it's a whole deep dive. I love that.
What was the top song of the time or the top album?
Give me that name one more time. What's it called?
The Wrong Podcast Died. So it'll be the opposite weeks of Spooky, but it'll be on the same link. So if you go to where you listen to I Like It Spooky Horror Podcast and Mishmash, and appendages, it'll be the opposite weeks of Spooky.
It's all in the Spookyverse. Ever growing, ever evolving.
You never know where that show's really gonna go.
Sounds like you can take it anywhere, honestly. But I do love the format that you just
I think we've been as new as 2000s, 10s maybe, and as old as 1950s. We went through a lot. Some of the cool stuff, you're like, what? That happened the day after that movie came out? Or that was happening at that time? Or eggs were that cheap? Shit, let's go back.
Ah, the good old days of cheap eggs.
If I've learned anything, it's that Barbie and Hot Wheels have been popular toys since the inception of Barbie and Hot Wheels.
I believe that. I absolutely believe that.
I have fun with it. That's it. That's all I got. Just having fun, watching movies.
I'm sorry, my brain blanked.
Her brain shut off. So
Did you literally see it reboot in the camera?
it's that cyber attack thing that happened the other day.
Apparently my Microsoft just crashed. It totally got the blue screen of death. I think that it means thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Clint, we hope you're doing okay, bud. Blink if you're all right. We hope to see you soon. That's Brian. I'm Leah. Thanks for tuning in to indie Spotlight.
They can't see us.
Bye. Oh.
Bye.
I'm just now learning how podcasts work. Damn.
What do you think this is all about? You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.